All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted. I swear, every time, I don't know why, I always want to call it Unsubscribed, which is a horrible name for a podcast. Welcome to Unscripted, one-on-one, and very special guest again tonight. Now, before we get started, I got one question for my guest, and that is, where do you want to go? Where do you go when you want to get live?
Be high, be high.
Those that are seeing this will absolutely know. We just went back to the 216. My brother, my friend, Darren Carter is my special guest tonight. So I just want to make sure we were still on the same page. It's been a minute since we were in high school, but But man, Darren, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
I am, to use the term of the Ohio State University, the Darren W. Carter. Hey man, I'm just a nobody trying to do a little bit of something. As you say, we went to school together. Right now, I'm doing some things. I've started a little venture out in barbecue, which has kind of been my passion for a while. Founded a group called Cleveland Dads Group here in Cleveland, and you actually got that one in Columbus as well. It's under the auspices of umbrella group called City Dads. And, you know, just dealing with fatherhood, helping fathers, young fathers, old fathers. We've been able to do some things with different brands as well. And it's been a good thing. Of course, COVID knocked all of that out, but we're going to, we'll try to get back together. Up here, I also tried to do a bike event. I did a bike event for a few years called R Get Up. We couldn't do it again this year because of COVID. But it's held at a local elementary school, and it's like a family affair. You know, the kids bring their bikes. We go on a family bike ride, pedal, not motor. And they have like safety town. The local police come, their bike unit comes, and they help us out, do tips, tricks, all that kind of stuff. And it's a pretty good event. But I've been closed down pretty much this year. But other than that, I'm a husband of 21 years, and I'm a father. We're foster parents and adoptive parents as well. So, I'm just awesome.
Absolutely. Why?
At least in my head.
Why else would you be on this? I mean,
right?
No, that's awesome. I'm a Raiders fan, man. Sorry, I know. It's okay. So you just showed a Cleveland Browns cup for those on the podcast, but it's all good, man. Nothing but love in my heart for all things Cleveland, forever and always. So, so this is a reunion of sorts. I think 5 years ago. It's been a minute there as well since we had a class reunion. I think is last time. Well, no, I think you guys were in town. I can't remember if that was before or after that.
I think the reunion was after, a little bit after, and that was our 25th. Was it the 25th? Are you sure?
25th, it was. I'm positive because I was back and forth on going and. I thought for sure the 25th was going to be like the big one, and I missed the 20. And
20 was more elaborate.
It was huge.
I think.
Yeah. It was huge. So I saw 20, and I'm like, man, 25 is going to be a blowout. And I went in there. It wasn't nearly as big. So
no, it just. I mean, I guess after a while. People are in their third marriages, 5 babies, 3 or 4 jobs. I guess the nuance wears off. I mean, we're coming up on 30, so it'll be interesting how that comes out. But
yeah, well, the team does a good job. I mean, they did a great job that night. I had a blast. Honestly, I was
part of the team.
Yeah, I got there late, but I enjoyed it. I had a great time. I got home late because I drove home that night after. But had a great time, and the team does a good job. So always good, getting back to them Cleveland roots, and especially Bedford. I don't get back too often now, and
that's just a shame.
I got more coming. I got the Unscripted has got some more Bedford coming in the pipeline. I've got some names that we're gonna have a good time. So I stick true to my roots. Anybody that knows me knows that well. My roots are in the 216, and will never be pulled out ever. So for sure. So So tell us a little bit about. Let's start with, you mentioned it, adoption and family. What's can you tell that story a little bit? What's happening with your family?
So we, for the longest, my wife and I, we wanted to conceive. We couldn't. For seems like a myriad of reasons. It never happened, and I was not really up for adopting a child. You know, back then I was younger, dumber. I want my own seed. Boom, you know.
Yeah.
Well, my seed and her eggs wasn't working, or whatever, you know. So it just went on, and we eventually got a godson in our life. We actually held him in my hands at the second day that he was born, and for the longest time, he was the only father. I was the only father that he knew. Long story short to that one, unfortunately, that didn't turn out as well. I mean, we basically raised him since he was 6 or 7, and on the constant, I have not seen him. Our family hasn't seen him for like 2 years. I think, you've seen many pictures of him back in the day on Instagram or whatever. You've seen him. Got to work that out. It'll come out, but it's fine. But during that process, my wife and I even separated once for about 2 years, which our family just caused us to live in 2 different residences. But, we did separate. And during that time, she became a foster parent. So when we did reconcile and get back together, I could not be one because I'm in the same house. You have to register and do or whatever. But during that time and all that, since we had started to raise our godson who turned son, the wisdom in me was like, you have love for children. Children need it. If there is a place for it, let it be. So, we both became fosters, and we had a couple, and then we had a little boy, and he's still upstairs. We had him at 2 months, and now he's 4, so about to go 5, but we ended up adopting him after 2 years old. And we've had a couple and we actually have a placement now, a 1-year-old dude. 1-year-old. Remember I told you these were well earned? These were well earned. But the point, there's been a lot of hurt there, when somebody would come or go. But the point of the matter is, and I tell people, I can't do the foster parents, I get attached. Well, we want you to get attached because we want you to treat them as your own child. They need that. They need to be comforted. They need to be loved. They need to feel that they're safe. And even if you do that for someone for a moment, that's a lasting seed. Hopefully somebody down the road will water that, but you've been planted in something that can never be taken away from it, whatever circumstances that they come from. Yeah. If you can bear that and help heal their traumas, which is just a one day at a time step, because, they just deal with so much of that, just love it. Just love the child. And there's a lot of children out there that are in the system that need to be loved. And we don't have enough foster parents, period. We don't have enough foster parents of color. We don't have enough people to open their homes to needy kids because of, unfortunately, some stereotypes about foster kids, which some are true, but it doesn't encompass everybody, as you know. Everything is not general, and nothing is a monolith. So that's my PSA for somebody out there that's listening to you, to be a foster parent. Yeah. So we deal with SAFI, and they are a national organization, but they're also statewide here. You got one in Columbus as well. But the county or their other agencies, take a look, see, because there are a lot of children, that are just needing that love. And that comes with correction, that comes with adoration, that comes with lifting up, all of that, what our parents gave us, for the most part, what our parents gave us. So yeah, that's how we got that. So now, my wife loves infants. I don't know why, because it's hard to give an infant back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why little man is upstairs now. But
well, I love watching the pictures on Instagram and social media, and I love all that you're doing, which I think led to that next passion and question for you is the dad group that you're a part of. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yep. That came out of, I've always wanted to do something like that. It was odd when my godson, when we had him, it was little. That's how actually the bike event came up, all geared up a family bike event. He was trying to ride his tricycle. I was walking down. He was like, "Dad, can we get a bike ride with all the dads?" I'm like, I guess. So I went to my local councilman. At that time, I lived in University Heights. I don't know if you're still familiar with that.
Heck yeah.
And it's right near Cleveland Heights, between Cleveland Heights, Shaker.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a plan. We talked to the recreation director, and we talked with a couple of bike enthusiasts and principal. There we go. 4 months later, well, about a year later, we were able to pull off our first event. And that event, it's in its 5th year, or would have been in its 5th year this year. All came from a mind of, at that time, a 3-year-old.
Wow.
A 3-year-old. Wow. So it was because of him, because I already have a daughter. When we were married, my wife had a daughter from a previous marriage, and she was 5 at the time. I did not have number one dad on my coffee cup at all. I tried to raise and gear her like my father personally did me.
Yeah.
But that's not what she needed or how she grew. So, I mean, oh my God, junior high school, I swear Alien took her and just brought her back about when she was like 25. I don't know, but it was bad.
Yeah. And
through my godson, I learned a little bit more. Well, through her, actually. I'm sorry. I got a good foundation of what's the knots to do. Yeah. And we know each child is different, but there is a basis and a foundation. And unfortunately, and I apologize sometimes, but we made up since then. She was like a Cleveland team. You move away from a bad team.
Yeah.
And you go somewhere and win a championship. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what do you? So
unless LeBron comes on.
Absolutely. So it helped me grow, and I got more into being what a father should be, not just a controlling or trying to be or strict, because I was trying to make her be something that I wasn't at the time. I mean, I had undiagnosed ADHD at the time. I mean, I didn't get diagnosed until I was like 40 something. So all the stuff I was telling her she should be doing, or all this kind of stuff, I'm flying by night, So there was not a lot of reciprocity there. There was not a lot of good examples. But I had a friend of mine who, when I started doing a little bit of blogging, a friend of mine who used to live here in Cleveland, lives in Indianapolis now. He had started the Indianapolis Dads group. We came, had a little play date with the kids, and he was like, "Hey, man, you ever think about, starting a Dads group?" I was like, "Actually, yeah, but I don't know what to do. I don't have the time," and blah, blah, blah. But this group called City Dads Group had everything in place to get a functioning group together and be part of a bigger picture. So got a chance to meet with the organizers. In 2015, we became a Dads group. So it was going pretty well for a while. It's a lot of hard work, It's hard work, especially when you work, because the dads really came out of a lot of stay-at-home dads, and I didn't have a lot of those in my group. But like I said, we got to do a little reboot, especially since COVID is here. We haven't really get a chance to do any activities or a dad's night out or anything like that. But that really grew my passion in how can I come up with a better father, speaking with other men with similar situations, or being a voice to young fathers that are experiencing something that I went through and so forth. So it's a great conglomeration of people all over this nation. I think we got 37 or 38 groups around the country now. So we've all been through something.
Yeah.
We've all been through something.
And that's awesome that you would reach out and make that network of people like that. I mean, I think we could all admit, especially all of us dads could admit, it takes a village to raise our kids. And in that village, we got to have brothers and sisters that we lean on and learn from one another. And I've told it many times. I don't know how many times I sat on Austin's bed and said, man, I'm screwing this up too. Like, I've never done this before. And he's my oldest and my first.
There's no book.
Yeah, there's no manual here. They didn't give us that when we left the hospital. So, it honestly, I don't know how many times I had to tell him, man, I'm sorry, and I had to say I'm sorry, because I thought I got that one right, but I didn't. And as a dad trying to do the best you can, you're going to make mistakes, especially when you've never done it before. And so having older parent or older dads or husbands, brothers, friends, whatever it might be in those groups, to be able to say, hey, put his arm around you and say, hey, here's how you do that, or here's what I did. It's huge.
It makes a world of difference. And you speak about apologies. I remember me apologizing to my daughter profusely. And one specific time, we was at the breakfast table, and I was eating, my Fruit Loops or whatever, and we was eating, and I'm like super nervous, man. I'm like, oh my God, I'm apologizing to Kat. What if she don't like it and she don't like me no more? She don't care. She could ever run out. I'm just, all this stuff is going through my head. And I'm literally shaking, talking to my teenage daughter, okay? And I'm like, look, Bri, I'm sorry. I really want to apologize. I was blah, blah, blah. I went down the road, and she just looked up. She was like, okay. I'm like, that's it? Yeah, right. I just stressed out for all this. And she's like, yeah, okay. And our relationship at this point, she's 26 now. I mean, it's wonderful. Now we deal with the 26-year-old issue, you know what I'm saying? But the life issues, but as in the bond and everything, it's never been better, which took a long way, but it's good. It's good.
Yeah. And kids give a lot of grace. Thank God for that.
Amen.
They give us a lot of grace, and we got to do the same back, but thank God that they give us a lot of grace. So, all right, next one, because we got a lot, so I'm not rushing you through these points, but we got lots to cover. So let's talk barbecue, because I know we exchanged a few messages, and I got my Ninja Foodie Grill, which I mentioned on the earlier podcast. I'm locked in now. And so talk to me about barbecue. What we got?
I don't know about you a lot, but I remember when I was younger, holidays, people come over, we have, 4th of July and all that kind of stuff, Labor Day. And who was manning the grill? My dad, out there preparing the night before, getting food ready. You got a little sweating over the hot coals, flipping those ribs, those burgers and everything. But, the ending of it was to see how people love to eat. And, I'm like, at a little bit, I was like, oh, when I grow up, I'm gonna have a family one day. I'm gonna do that to my family. So yeah, I got my little grill, burning up my food and, doing stuff like that. And they sort of like it, and I got a little better. And it's something, I don't know when or what it was I saw, but then it was just something that clicked different. I was like, I gotta be more than what I'm just doing this, making a fire, Eddie Murphy, that's a fire, I don't know how many people remember that, but, different types, of how to, I didn't know anything about Lois Lawyer. Everything was on how to grill, turn, whatever. Right. So I started to learn more about that, and my love for it grew as the people that I were feeding saw the difference and loved it more.
Right.
There's nothing better than to fix something and to put your heart and soul into it, and stay like, they just can't, they can't express how they like it, or, and it's one thing I did learn, everybody's not going to like my style, my recipe. I mean, that's why they got Burger King, McDonald's, and Wendy's. They all make burgers, but they all make it a different way. So I had to learn that when I was growing, but it just became a passion, And I started getting to find people like, the Myron Mixes of the world, watching competition shows, seeing how the low and slow process, started upgrade my equipment, and then, from there they just went, started selling dinners after people, maybe you should try it out. Okay, you started doing that. And it's like, well, this may fly. So, I work in the steel mill industry now, and we just got sold and bought, so we never know how that's going to work out. But I'm like, I started in there late. I don't want to stay there forever. So I want to have something to, and I'm like, what, I had enough of y'all. I'm getting out of here. I want to have something that I can do. And that's going to, be barbecue. So I started just a little side hustle. I can do it when I can. But it is my passion. I love it. My wife helps me out when we cook. That's a pretty exciting thing there. Wink, wink. And it's just, I can do it all day if I could. So, we try to do a little catering events. We had a couple so far. I do, ribs are my thing, man. I mean, it's gonna be the best ribs you ever tasted. Even if you don't think it's the best ribs you ever tasted, it's the best ribs you ever tasted. So I do like those type of sales and different things like that. I do basically Texas style, which is, the dry rub. And a little low and slow, and a little hot and fast, but I always got a little Cleveland kick in there. So just not straight Texas style, just a little something different in there, which I tend to call the Cleveland kick and Cleveland twist rather. And if I tell you, we had to stop this broadcast, I'd be in Columbus, and you will never be seen again. So we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it's a great thing, man. Food, it's a common denominator. And it heals so many things. It heals so many things. So I like that something that I put something into makes people happy, Yeah. So that's where Carter's Barbecue, that's where that came from.
Carter's Barbecue. Before we get off, I want to get all the links for everything you're talking about. And because I want to share those out. So anybody in Cleveland, Carter's Barbecue, it's my guy. Get some Cleveland ribs with some Texas flavor.
That's right.
That was a commercial.
That is cool.
You could sell that.
I could sell that. Look, I'm gonna rewind that and put that on there. Like, yeah.
Just don't use my face. Just use the sound.
Use the sound.
It'd be over if they show the face. So, all right. So let's transition, and I'll try to get serious for a minute. So you and I grew up in Cleveland. I call it Cleveland. We grew up in Bedford.
Yeah. Suburb of.
A suburb of, and a diverse city. All I've ever known, Darren. And so when I look at the world today, actually, pause. Let me go back. Everything you've ever done, and I've always appreciated, you've always been on the next thing. You've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And so I know it was tech and blogs, and you've done a lot of things, and it sounds like you really found your lane with barbecue, and I didn't want to get away from that without mentioning you found your lane. And I know if there's another thing, you'll find your lane again. You constantly do that, and I appreciate that about you. Okay.
Hey, when the tech space, especially with the blogs, when I started out, who did I call? Mr. Darren Conrad. I was like, hey, what's this? WordPress and this and that. That you helped me start out and get out there, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it was fun, and this seems to be the next thing for me. So it may last a day or two. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah. All right, back to Bedford. So we grew up in Bedford, diverse city. Man, it's all I've ever known, and I look at the world today, and I don't understand it because I don't understand it. I understand a world where you and I can have a podcast and talk like it doesn't matter. We don't look at each other any other way than two guys talking like I would anywhere else. And I don't know if I was raised that way, or if I was raised in a culture that was that way, or a time that was that way. I can't answer that question, but what do you think? Because we were raised in the same place. What do you see today, and what do you think?
Raised in the same way, but a different experience.
True.
We were like what, 60-40 white black. I think our class particularly, I think was like 60-40 or 55 45, something like that. But we still more, Bedford at that particular time was still more white than black. And and there was a division there. You know, you had a middle ground, which like kind of you were part of and other people were kind of part of. But just like everything else, we had a little bit more middle than extreme. I think now we have more extremes than middle. But it was there. It was there sometimes, not as much as what we saw in children. Oh, but their parents, totally different. I never forget. I mean, we had somebody move out on our street because they felt that there was too many black folks on our street now, you know, out in Bedford. School back in the 80s, it was, you know, who didn't like Prince? Who didn't like Michael Jackson? I mean, they were, you know, you see what I'm saying? But, you know, but then there was the hip hop was still kind of coming of age at that particular time. You know, then you had the heavy metal rockers over there, the Metallica and the Guns N' Roses and so forth over there. But you still had that angst for white and black. It may just not have been as prevalent to you, because you had that big middle ground.
Yeah. And
if you're not in that process of thinking that way or was raised that way, it doesn't really connect. But even like me being, you know, I always call myself that I wasn't a popular when I was like the 1A. If nobody popular was in class, they'd talk to me. But if somebody was, then I was like back in the back or something. But I was, you know, still sort of in the middle. But you can see, being a person of color, actually seeing all that was coming around you, maybe not understanding at the time. But yeah, there was divisiveness. There was, you know, there was some craziness.
Yeah.
But what makes it worse is now we're, you know, in our, you know, 20s, like twice, but, you know, or something. You know, we're half century old now.
Yeah. And
the people that we went to school with, I've had to unfriend, unlock, delete, or whatever, because the visualness of what has happened since 2016, when former President Barack Obama was, you know, not 16, that was 08, I'm sorry. When all that started back in 08, you know, the venom, the hatred, the visual, I'm like, is that how you thought about me back then? I thought we was cool. For you to be that way meant that you didn't give a sugar honey iced tea about me this way. So current events leading that from here have really, I guess everybody just wants to be transparent, whether that's good or bad. I mean, but we weren't bad. We had issues, yes. Did we not get along? Of course we got along, especially doing some sports. I mean, band, we was cool. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we were good folks mostly all the way around, but did we have to encounter that, some of us more than others? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When we would go to the mall, you know, Randall Park Mall, here again, sometimes it was the kids, little snide-nosed kids, and or, you know, the parents, you know, when we were hanging around, the way they looked, the way they put, we, you know, even as little people, young people, teenagers, we noticed that stuff. So why are you pulling your child closer to you when you walking past us? We just down here chilling. What's your problem? You know, I remember, I don't know if you know Rob Greider, me, him, Lamar Dillingham, a couple others one day. We were walking towards the pool, you know, shorts on. We're in high school. We got all we got on is a towel and our swim trunks because we go and swim, you know. And the police come because somebody said that with a bunch of, you know, boys out there making a lot of noise around the houses, you know, like a little gang or something. So we get rolled on, and I'm like, I'm like, I don't want to go to jail. What's wrong? You know,
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they was like, well, they said something about some kids doing something. Man, we going to swimming. I mean, what are we doing? We going swimming. Now, could we have been loud? We're teenagers, man. I mean, come on.
Right.
You know, I mean, we're outside walking in the street.
Well,
so yeah.
And this is probably a loaded question that could probably lead to an entirely another podcast. But I don't remember the quote, and I wish I really could off the top of my head. There's nothing on the top of my head, in case you haven't noticed. But it's clean. No, there's a quote, and I don't remember what it was, but it's powerful, and that is, and I really believe that even of myself in the '80s, we wanted to be. You mentioned it. We loved Prince. We all wanted to be Michael Jackson. We love the culture of hip hop and pop and all that, but I don't know that I understood the depth of what you just said. When I went to the pool. I didn't ever get stopped because of the color of my skin, but so I don't know, and I'm just making this up as I go. It's unscripted and I'm on the fly, but I think that's where some disconnect is even today's kids, man, they love Kanye, they love Drake, they love right, but you know what I mean, they love the culture, they love the music, they love the styles, they love the clothes, the shoes, the gear, but I don't know that any of us understand. Just because I listen to My Mind Is Playing Tricks on Me by the Ghetto Boys, I can't understand what they were talking about, or Public Enemy for that matter. We both love Public Enemy. I can't listen to PE, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, and claim that I understand what it's like to live in that world. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think so many times I think we as a white man, I think I've listened to that and feel like I have some kind of understanding when I don't understand that. I don't worry about being pulled over. I don't worry about going to the pool, swimming with my friends. And is it fair for us to say that is a massive disconnect?
It is. And I got fired from the pool once when I worked at the pool because somebody said they thought they saw me smoking weed. I ain't never smoked a joint in my life up to that point, and still not to this day either.
Wait, there was an up to that point, so
I had to change that and clarify. I have not had the weed.
It's all good. It's all good. It was medical purpose.
Yeah, and it was some parent who my father was realistic, and I went that next day to get a drug test to get my job back. I remember my pastor saying, you should have sued those people. But they took the word of somebody who was of a lighter hue than me. And all I do that summer, y'all kids, stay in schools, especially the kids that look like me. Y'all don't need to be doing this. And people knew that. Y'all don't need to be doing this drug stuff. Y'all blah, blah, blah. And now you gonna say, y'all caught me down the maintenance room smoking some weed with some other, now the other dude smoked weed. I was never around him when he did it, or whatever. At his own personal time. So yeah, they let me go. Got the job back though, because once I brought up there with that test, my father said some nice things, but and this is where, and of course, no offense to anyone, but this is where people get offended when that disconnect is the privilege of being white. And people, oh no, white people, I have no white privilege. I've worked, I did, my parents. That's not the type of privilege we're talking about. What you experience is a privilege that I don't have.
Right.
You don't have to worry about, like you said, when you get pulled over by police. I hear stories, people in Bedford and the older people that I grew up with, I threw that ticket in his face. Can you imagine me throwing a ticket? We would not be having this conversation.
Yeah.
If I threw a ticket in a cop's face. Yeah. Just the things, because you are of a different hue and there's a different mindset about who we are as people of color. That is a privilege we don't have. That is not to say that you ain't worked for what you got, that you ain't had it hard, that things haven't been rough for you. But if we go down the line, if you and I, and we have a 750 credit score, and we both go in the bank, I guarantee your interest rate will be lower than mine. It will. And that's how it's always been. And from the redlining, from all of that, from Jim Crow, there has been systematically things put in place to make things more difficult than for you. So, you can go to any Black family in our day, You got to study. You got to be the best. You got to do this. You got to do that. Well, why? Why can't I just, this is hard. Why do I got to be the best? Which unfortunately I wasn't. But why do I have to be the best? Because our best is still worse than your mediocre when it comes to opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's the antithesis of the privilege. It's not that nobody didn't work to get what they get and all this kind of stuff. It's the things that, like you said, you don't understand. There's the disconnect. That disconnect is that privilege that you didn't ask to have, but you do. I didn't ask to have, but it is. And that's the kind of society that we live in. And unfortunately, in today's society, it has, I don't know what it was like. We were born in the late 60s. I don't know what it was like back then during the civil rights. But this is as tense as I've ever felt it. I wrote a Facebook post a couple of days ago. I was like, after all this stuff, 2020, but anyway, everything that's been going on.
Absolutely.
And then after, I didn't watch it. I just seen the highlights because I thought it turned out to what I thought it was going to be. But the presidential debate, the scripture comes to mind: "Put no trust in man," basically, but in the Lord, trust your Lord in all your heart. And I said that scripture, Psalms, I think it's 118 and 8. It is so alive to me now, because my faith in humanity is at an all-time low. And then I realized I'm gonna have to protect my family at any cost, and or as Malcolm X said, by any means necessary. But because it's dark. There are things that we still move on and kind of navigate through, but since 2008, it has been deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And these last 4 years, 4 to 6 years have just exploded. We would always say, when we hear people talk about different things regarding us, that's the dog whistle right there. They're saying something without saying, Now, and no more dog whistles. They just.
Yeah, I think of when I watched the presidential debate, and I'll say this because I think it applies to both. I think of the coach, Dennis Green. I think he was with the Vikings when he said it, but at that post game when he said they are who we thought they were.
Yeah.
And so I watched the debates and I said, they are who we thought they were. And take with that what you want. I'm not making a political statement. I don't, whatever. They are who we know. Yeah. But I go back to, I say that because, forget the politics, I don't want to get into it. But I say that because when I looked at Facebook and saw the same friends that you mentioned back when we started this conversation, my thought was they are who we thought they were. What this has done is brought a spotlight to what people thought, what most of us knew. Now we don't have to question anymore where you stand when it comes to this thing. And you know what, man, and let me say this. I pray to God that if anybody sees anything I say, I hope I'm not coming off anything more than what I do believe, and that is, you and I've never seen each other any other way than just us talking.
We're brothers.
We're brothers.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean I'm perfect, man. I live in this. But let me take one other step too. You said, here's where I think I get tripped up. I see white privilege. I hear the word white privilege, and I'm not that bright, you know that. So my first thought is, that means I have a silver spoon in my mouth. Well, I grew up in Bedford too. I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth, not to sound like New Jack City, Miss Hawkins. No, but
Hawkins.
I didn't have a silver spoon. My parents worked really, really hard, and they taught me to work really, really hard. I'm not privileged, but that word, when you just explained it, man, I see that differently now. I understand that differently now. I am privileged. I'm absolutely blessed in many ways. I would even go so far as to say, because I haven't had to walk in those shoes that you have, even though we grew up in the same town. I don't know if so. Maybe privilege isn't the right word for me because I'm not that bright. Maybe
well, I don't think it's the right word. I don't think it's the right word in general. But you know, it's like Black Lives Matter. Somebody's going to come and say all lives matter. Yeah, we know it does, but you know, we know the parable of Christ and the shepherd as a sheep. He takes over the flock, but when that one goes astray, that flock is not right. He has to still go get that one sheep, and he leaves the flock, gets the sheep, so everybody can be whole. That's all we're saying. That's all that people are saying. So it's not about somebody's life is more important than others, but when you have an issue with one sector of it, let's just fix it.
Yeah.
So we can all be whole. So anything that someone says, when it's always a counteract somewhere. Black lives matter. No, all lives matter. You know. Well, if we change the word from privilege, it's going to be something. You know what I'm saying? It'll be something. It'll be something else. Well, we think that there's too much, violence from cops to unarmed black people. Well, what about black on black crime? It's always a rebuttal.
Right.
Let's just deal with it. And black on black crime is crime. It's no different. You got white crime, that's crime. So why isn't that white on white crime? It's crime. People get crime and they do the time. But here again, this is where that privilege comes in and systematically to where it's not geared to help lower income and or people of color. And what trips me out is that white people that are lower income don't get that some of the rules that are against us are against them as well. It's against them as well. So sometimes they go against their own interests in some things. But it's a bigger class issue, and there's a color issue in it. The color thing is just a construct. I mean, was it around since what? I think the early 50s, 60s? Just because to block people in different things. Dude, we all human. I believe red. You probably believe blue, but
Carolina blue, baby.
But we're all God's children, built the same way. We have different experiences, and our experience in America is just different from any other person that have come here. We are the only group of people of color that were brought here. And that separates everything. We're not immigrants, as some Texas books say, we are immigrants looking for work. No, we weren't immigrants looking for work. And no, we weren't happy just because we were singing songs. We were taken from one place and brought to another. And here's the thing, with me today is, America is a great country. It could be so much better. How? By inclusiveness. I swear, man, if we were just all equal, we would be Wakanda in this place. I swear. Because there have been so many lives that have been cut short. There are so many ideas that are in the grave because somebody thought they were better than you because of what they look like.
Yeah.
There's so much potential that was lost because we wanted to be better than you or control you or do this. So our experience is different from anybody else that came over on any other boat, with $2 in their hand and build it, whatever. No. That's totally different. And because of how we came here and what we did here is the only reason our country is as prosperous as it was so fast. So and we're here. We live here, we work here, we do here. Ain't nobody going back nowhere. Because most of us, you know what I'm saying? Right. But the point is, you have to deal with family hurts. You have to deal with those things that nobody talks about. You can't just wash them away. How are you ever going to learn from that? How are you just going to say this never happened? Oh, I beat you up 2000. I beat you up last year. Oh, I'm sorry. You got to forget that. Oh, but this scar and this handy, now I got a broken arm and I can't do what I used to do because of that, but I'm not going to forget it. My life is forever changed.
Right.
There needs to be, and I think this is where it's hard for the rubber meet the road, in my opinion. And of course, all these views are not maybe established by Darren Conrad in the 101 podcast, but where the rubber does not meet the road is that if people really say and admit, oh, well, yeah, that's messed up, man. That was wrong. And no, I can't make up for what my ancestors did. I work hard, but yeah, that was pretty messed up. How do we deal with this? Now they're accountable. Who wants to be accountable?
Right.
And that's the problem. Because now if you recognize it, oh, there's no systematic racism. Oh, y'all need to forget about that. That was 400 years ago. So 400 years from now, can we tell you, and I'm just saying this in conversation, can we tell you to forget 9/11? I bet you somebody now just turned me off. Sorry, I hope I didn't lose a subscriber from you. But I'm just using that in context. I don't want to forget nothing. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
This is just for conversational purposes. So how that may sting somebody, if I were to say that with them in all seriousness, still reverberates to this day, because we have everlasting PSD from 400 years of being here, working outside of our own will. And then the things that were taught during that time, all those things, it takes time to get that stuff out. We're still living through that. That's why we're not a monolith. That's why you got people that think this way, Black culture. That's why you got people that think that way. You got fighting amongst yourselves, just like anybody else. But there are ways that were imparted to us that have been detrimental to the growth of the Black community, people of color, because of slavery. And then when you get out of slavery, and there was Reconstruction, and you go to Jim Crow, and redlining, it's just been one thing after the other. So we were just about to be born some years later when Black people really got the right to vote. That's in our span of a generation. And that ain't been that long ago. The civil rights movement, man, that wasn't that long ago. 50 years or so. That's a person's life. So are we supposed to be all right now because we had a Black president or so, a person of color as president? I guess not, because that was really wrong. That was the wrong thing to do, it seemed like, because now everything is. That's when I really saw, for me personally, people, whether you're Democratic or Republican, people always do their things. It didn't matter. When it was Bill Clinton and George Bush, they went back and, what I'm saying, they did their blah, 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 blah. But the visceral and the venom that was thrown starting in 2008 was totally different. It was vicious. It was vicious. And that has just exploded up to this point today. So,
and it continues to this day. And I'm not making a political statement. You can say what you want about the president, and clearly people do. But I agree with you. And I was on with, not that I'm pumping my own podcast, but I was on with a guy that was in country music during the Dixie. He actually opened for the Dixie Chicks. And I pointed out, and I've brought this up so many times because I'm still blown away by it. The Dixie Chicks were ruined as a career. They'll never be the same because they said, we're embarrassed of our president because he's from Texas, in London, not in the United States. They were in
London. I remember that.
And they said, we're embarrassed of the president because he's from Texas. And they were destroyed. Can you imagine? That's a punchline nowadays. Like that.
Absolutely.
Nothing. It's nothing. And as you said, it started in 2008. And we could, and I don't want to cut it off at all. I hate to do that because we could talk all night. And I think that therein lies our best days, is when we can talk all night. And I can hear that when you say the word white privilege, it means this and not a silver spoon in my mouth. I can hear that, all the things you've said, I can hear those. And I can hear that you said, you may lose some subscribers, somebody just logged off. I don't care, because I'm not doing this so I have a big subscription, that's not why I do this. I do this because I want to know your story. I want to understand how we get to better days. Because if we can't get this right, we're not going to have better days. And my kids deserve them. And we deserve to hand this thing off to the next generation in a better way than we found it, and we're not doing it because we're too busy fighting.
No.
So, you know, that's where my head is, and it's my podcast, and I'll rant if I want to. Now, I just lost the other half of the people that were listening, but no, I mean that. Darren, we need to have more conversations, and I hate that we're going to cut it off because I want to have another one. I want to do this again, and I want to start here and pick it up and then keep this conversation going, because maybe there's someone that's listening that was driving in their car or on a run or on a walk or watching it on YouTube, wherever they may find this media, and go, wow, I didn't think about that, and pause for just a minute to say, I got to be better. I got to do better. It doesn't matter what color that may be, who that is. They think, you know what, I got to listen better. I got to let my voice be heard better. I don't know. That's where I'm at. I think that we're not going to get anywhere until we do that. And I just want to see better days.
I always, when things like this happen, when people of color, men of color get done down, you know, by police or vigilantes or whatever, and something, I always like, you know, people go crazy. It's always seen as somebody should have never done, or this or that or whatever, and people just go attack the person that was killed. I had a friend of mine tell me when George Floyd died, in that situation, was killed, murdered. I used to say killed, but he was murdered. Well, we're not sure that he died like that. First of all, aren't you just even upset that somebody who has power used that power to be abusive to somebody else? Anyway, let's just take out everything else. You're not disturbed by that? So my question is, why aren't you disturbed by that? Yeah. Why? So a quick story. Now, you know me, obviously up to my high school years, we've communicated throughout our adult life. But my car's, what was it, my battery? No, it was my alternator or something went down. Me and my wife trying to have some fun in Columbus. Car went down. Hey, Aaron, you know, you and your wife took me. Tell her, by the way, tell her, kiss for me, tell her, say hello.
Welcome guest, man.
Yeah, you invited me in, and we have that type of relationship. We don't have to talk. We could not talk for now in 5 years. But I know in my heart, if I needed something, or it was something that I knew that I would have no hesitation to call, and vice versa, and we could do it for each other. And that's just how it is. So you would say I'm a nice guy, right? Pretty laid back.
Sure.
All right. So quick story. I had just got my CCW. This is about 5 years ago. Just got my CCW. I used to drive my pastor. I would go pick him up, drive him to church, right? So he lived out in Aurora at the time. This was a Sunday morning. Me and Teresa got into it for whatever reason. Not like, you know, fussy. I mean, it was just fussy. She got on my nerves. I got on her nerves. Leaving the house, driving down the highway. So that rolled over because I guess my pastor had a bad morning. So we had a bad morning. I'm like, you know what? So he got in his car. I got in my car. And we were just hopefully going to make it to church and just make a better day, right? I can't remember why, but we driving down next thing, and I'm in Soda at this point. Oh, yeah. So I get pulled over. I noticed I had my CCW. Put those hands up on the wheel. You know, have them on the wheel. Don't touch nothing. Come out. You tell them that you have a CCW. But I forgot. And all that was going on, it was a perfect storm. I was flustered, I was frustrated, everything. And the way I was carrying my firearm, it felt more like my wallet than my firearm. So I had really just do all that. Okay, I don't have my gun on me. Okay, so I lean back in the car because I'm like this, you know. So I lean back and I'm like, oh. So he goes, gets to whatever, writes the ticket. So this time my hands are out the window. Before he gets, I had it floored a 96 Ford Explorer at the time. And I'm like, sir, this is before he gets to, they're not long, but they're longer than the car. You know what I'm saying? An Explorer. Before he even gets to the back of the trunk, I'm like, sir, I apologize. I didn't tell you correctly. Bad day. I do have my firearm with me. Not even 3 seconds, he runs up to the car, right in my face. Get out the car! Get out the inevitable car! I'm like, my hands are still in. I'm like, sir, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I've just had a bad day. I forgot to tell you. I just want to tell you before you came back, before you came up here. He went ballistic on me. He pulled me out the car. And at that point, I'm like, F it. I'm starting to talk back because my day had just exploded. It just was what it was. So by that time, some other people came, people calm down. How you gonna tell me to calm down? This man put a gun in my face. He's shaking, got the gun in my face, could have killed me. I could have been a hashtag, and all people would know of me is that he resisted. Or he didn't tell the cop that he had a gun. So he may have wanted to shoot him. My name would never be what my name should be if that would have happened. You think I got an apology?
Yeah.
No, we got charged and everything over a mistake. Now, he could have had a bad day too. But I always say that story to tell people, we never know. I know cops never know what they're going into. We never know what the cops have gone through. But there has to be something to buffer that.
Yeah.
I just thank God that guy didn't have a happy trigger finger, or you and I would not have had this conversation. And at that time, there were no hashtags, so I just would have been somebody, and they would have said here again that he resisted, or it would have been made, it would have made me look like I was doing something egregious, which, I forgot to tell the man something, and I gave the man particular distance and stance and no threat whatsoever, to do what I needed to do, but that still happened. But now those opportunities end differently, which is unfortunate. And that's what I'm afraid of. I got a boy. I'm afraid of my godsons. I got one, that you remember, he's 10 now, and he's rambunctious, he's 10. I got a 27-year-old who's trying to, raise his family, but he still like to do some street stuff, not negative, just go to party or do this, do that. And it scares me. It scares me because it's not in our current situation is not in their best interest. Yeah. Not in their best interest.
Yeah. Well, man, we could do this all night. And I think there's a lot more stories that you can tell than I can, which is the point, right? Isn't that the point? We got a lot to learn, and
be willing. That's all. From my perspective, to anybody I talk to, and I always like I said, when things come out, I invite people. If you want to talk, let's talk. I consider myself to be a reasonable person. I know everything is not just black and white. There's gray there. And come let us reason together and just hear me out. Hear it out differently from somebody not screaming down your throat or this and that. And understanding a little bit more of everything, has a little bit more wisdom. If you would have asked me that when I was 25, 30, I was fight the power. So that's not the one you want to talk to.
Me too.
Yeah. So it's a different, a different scene and thing, but it's just have the conversation, and if you do have the conversation and it resonates, share it, because it's not going to change as much from me talking to that person. It's going to change from that person going into their churches, going into their homes, going into their communities, and then talking and getting that spread around. If that happens, we would be in a much better place.
Man, we covered a lot of ground, and we still got a lot of ground to cover, and we'll have to do this again, and maybe after that. We haven't even talked about, man, there's a lot to talk about. I'm not even gonna start because it'll just keep rolling. But I got some more Bedford folk coming on.
Good.
It's gonna be fun, man. You were the first guy that I went out to, and because you're my.
I can't wait to see the rest.
So I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your friendship all these years. Your grace, even in this conversation. You know, I don't know what I'm talking about, and you extended grace to me to listen to the words that I might say, and hopefully we can learn from one another, and that extends beyond just this call. I love you as a brother, always have. I'm just thankful that you were on tonight, and we will do this again very soon, I promise.
Please do. I had this circle, but I was waiting for this day.
Good.
I was waiting for this day.
Good. Well,
it's good to see your face and talk to you and everything, sir. Very much. Yeah. So.
Well, let's do it again soon. We'll, in the meantime, keep in touch on social media as always. But appreciate you. I know this audience is going to appreciate you, and we'll do this again soon and pick up where we left off, because the conversation is not over, and I don't want to run it off, because honestly, we could talk all night. I also don't want to get us to get cut off on this recording.
Right.
So the conversation is not over, and it won't be over until we find better days. And so let's pick up this conversation again soon, man.
Absolutely, sir.
All right, brother. Love you. Talk to you.
Take care.
Bye.